The Cameron Parker Show takes a dive into all the main professional sports teams in Colorado. For instance, the Denver Broncos, with insight from numerous contributors.
Maybe Kirk Cousins wasn't, in essence, that guy when he was at Michigan State, but he certainly has really assumed a true leader mentality when he was with the Washington Redskins, and he's really kind of taken it to another step. Baker Mayfield, he has it in college, and so to even think about the Broncos team on offense, that's the type of player that offense needs, and especially with the kind of swagger that the defense has, it's a guy that could really transform an offense just by himself alone. Editor, writer for Predominantly Orange, Sayer Bettinger is just one of many to talk about those Denver Broncos.
We love the competition of football, and that's why, a lot of fans want the Broncos to win the competition of getting Kirk Cousins, and that's maybe even more what it's about for those fans than, necessarily wanting to get the best quarterback available, because honestly, it might be smarter to go after Keenum and draft somebody. I mean, financially, and you might get a better long-term player than Cousins. You never know.
Also on deck on the Cameron Parker Show is the Colorado Rockies.
I called it a re-audition, so to speak, for Carlos Gonzalez with the Colorado Rockies. And I think if you look at it, you look at where he was, it gives that opportunity for Carlos Gonzalez to really rewrite who he is as a, maybe not rewrite, but just reestablish him as one of the all-time greats. Sean Tafoya drops the puck and gives his takes on the Colorado Avalanche.
I love everything that Eric Johnson says, because he is 100% till the day he dies a Colorado Avalanche, right now. And he said, we want guys that want to be here. We want guys that want to be contenders and win a cup with the Colorado Avalanche. And, every single time he gets interviewed about it, he says, we want to win it for the city of Denver. We as guys want to win it for the city of Denver. And, that's something that should be, I guess, in your locker room. Any locker room that, you're in. You play for the Ducks, you want to win it for Anaheim. You play for Minnesota, hey, let's go out and win it for the state of hockey.
Also, Brandon Stoll is a contributor on the Cameron Parker Show, taking a dive himself to talk about the Denver Nuggets.
It's hard to explain. I know it's not flashy, it's not like Jamal coming out hitting 3 straight threes or dunking on people. But man, Gary Harris, his defense it changes the culture on a team.
It is now time to saddle up with the Cameron Parker Show podcast.
The Colorado Avalanche, for the first time in, it seems like it's been forever, because it has. The Colorado Avalanche are playoff bound. And while I said we're going to be doing the mock draft April, guys, it's still the Colorado Avalanche making the playoffs. So we got to do a show about it, and we got to have JJ on, who was on earlier, but this time he's going to be talking about how excited he is, how thrilled he is, and I am, about being a part of the playoff hockey now of the Colorado Avalanche. He's with Mile High Sports. How does it feel, first of all? I mean, it feels great for me, because it's been a long time since the Colorado Avalanche have been in the postseason.
Yeah, it definitely feels awesome. Just last time they were in the playoffs, it was 2013-14. You had that pretty young team, and they had some damage, but obviously lost to Minnesota in Game 7, which sucks in general. But just seeing them, how they are this season compared to that last playoff run that they had, it's really interesting, because this is such a young team that they have, and they have a different perspective and just a completely different mindset. It's intriguing. And plus, obviously, watching any playoffs with the Avs or any Colorado team it's special.
And it's extra special. It's extra special, really, when it involves, I should say, really all the teams. The Denver Broncos. For the most part, it's going to be a Broncos town for a while. I ran a poll on Facebook It was shockingly a landslide. I know you saw it, but overall, it's still going to be a Broncos town for quite some time. But it is so gratifying in the sports world of Denver, having Denver play for game 82, which is the last game of the regular season for the chance to go to the playoffs. And then you have the Avalanche also, for the most part, going to the last part of the regular season to punch their ticket into the postseason, and they do that. And just especially just the overall city, it's incredibly gratifying, as a Denver sports fan in general.
Yeah, I mean, definitely you just have that feel. I mean, I've been kind of saying this the entire time. It kind of feels like the Nuggets and the Avs are kind of similar in their own way because they are both young teams and they are kind of taking that same rise up to like the playoffs or whatever. But it's just interesting of how similar they have been this entire season long, and now obviously it's coming down to the very last game, which is ironically enough against Minnesota, but it's definitely interesting.
And obviously we didn't even talk about the Rockies too. I mean, there's just that incredible symmetry between all three of those teams. I mean, the Rockies a little bit more so kind of on its different path than Denver and the Avalanche, but they're fairly similar. But I don't think anybody, as we'll just dive right into the Colorado Avalanche, no breaks, but the Colorado Avalanche, it's just, you and I were talking about it earlier on the Cameron Parker show, just how incredible the change has been.
Yeah.
Really from a year ago.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely been insane. Has been insane. I think getting rid of Duchesne was definitely a key in that, especially being able to, for a few reasons. One, the locker room chemistry all in general, because just hearing stories and knowing how kind of he was in the background of everything going on. And then also the additions of like Sam Girard and Kamenev, as well as I'm blanking on another one. But the few other picks that they got and how young the Avs are getting, it's interesting just watching them kind of get better throughout the season, just kind of get shape and get that chemistry going. It's been superb, and it kind of really sets the tone of how that team could just progress for the next few years. It's going to be intense.
In some ways, it kind of parallels, in some degree, it kind of parallels the Carmelo Anthony trade with the Denver Nuggets in that stretch. I mean, the Avalanche have the opportunity to make it last longer than the Denver Nuggets, but the only difference being that Carmelo Anthony had a much bigger impact as far as maybe that type of franchise player than Matt Duchene. Matt Duchene was a tremendous player. It's just, there were those seasons, there were those moments where he could never take the next step. And he was an incredible talent, but it just would never get to the point where it is now, where Nathan McKinnon is going to end up being that guy, along with, getting Mikko Rantanen and Gabriel Landeskog, the top line, basically just having it be cohesive on the top line, but just in general, all the way throughout the team. So I don't know, it's kind of been in some ways sort of parallel to that, but I just feel like the Avalanche are taking that stranglehold to the point where they have the best opportunity to run with it.
Yeah, I mean, they're already taking the underdog title and kind of running with it. I feel like they've done that all season long. But I mean, now obviously with the first round of the playoffs being against the President Trophy winning Nashville Predators, who last season was in the Avalanche spot of the second wild card, and they made it all the way to the Cup final. But it's, I don't know, I wish that the Avs were that strong depth-wise, but I just don't think they are yet, especially in terms of defense too. I don't know, it'll be interesting to see how they do it, because they are even talking players now and hearing interviews from other guys with like McKinnon and all the top guys, and it's interesting because they don't have that mentality of, oh, we're young, we're not going to do anything against the Predators. I feel like that would be kind of stupid in the first place, but I don't know what team would go into the thing thinking like that. But yeah, I mean, it's really fun to watch them right now because they're so young and they have so much hope. And you have McKinnon, who is just on roll right now, and just that entire line. You have Kerfoot, who's going. You have Jost, who's finally going with Kerfoot as well. It's a lot of positive outputs are kind of just rising right now for the Avalanche.
Talk about Nathan McKinnon for a second, because for the longest time, and this was kind of a little bit before Nathan McKinnon, but Gabriel Landeskog certainly was a tremendous player. But I mean, in some ways, Patrick Waugh deserves at least a lot of credit for going back into that draft, because I mean, if I remember right, Nathan McKinnon was in the Seth Jones draft, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think back to that and of what could have been, because the speculation all throughout at least the last 2-3 months during that year, during that draft season, the Colorado Avalanche were pegged to have strong ties to Seth Jones as far as being for being that pick. But then the tide turned. They ended up getting Nathan McKinnon, a guy that Patrick Waugh was very, very familiar with.
Mm-hmm.
And then you kind of just saw him, obviously once the Duchesne trade hit, really just kind of take center stage. And he's really establishing himself really as that top 3 player, a lot like Nolan Arenado for the Colorado Rockies. Just a guy that is going to be truly a dominant player, but he has some good pieces on his line that can be also extra complimentary as well.
Yeah, I mean, definitely just as you were saying, just him kind of rising to the occasion of when he needs to. And I remember him doing that with Halifax too, because I was paying attention to him a little bit before he got drafted when he was with Halifax, and just everything that someone has said about him is that he takes that next step up whenever he needs to. And obviously, all of the credit goes to McKinnon, because there's Rantanen and Landeskog as well, who are having career seasons. But yeah, I mean, McKinnon he kind of, right after that trade, it kind of just definitely seemed like he kind of just put the pedal to the metal and kind of just got things going, which is exactly what the Avs needed for this season and kind of just the future seasons going up or coming ahead as well.
One of the problems over the years, and you and I brought the point early when Bernier was in a little bit of that hot streak.
Mm-hmm.
One of the key signings to the point for the Colorado Avalanche was establishing depth for goaltenders, and it's been the problem in the past. I mean, for the Avalanche, but the value that Jonathan Bernier brings to the Avalanche, especially in this table, and the postseason experience that he has, it's invaluable. Or it's valuable, I should say.
Yeah, I mean, kind of just heading into the season, I remember doing an article about Bernier and saying that he really just provides an extra cushion, because before Bernier, when Navs made the playoffs in the 2013 season, it was Varley and it was Giguère. So just obvious, it's kind of the same thing a little bit to veteran goaltenders who have their own skill set and that obviously have good numbers. But obviously in 2013, it was Varley who had that huge season, who kind of led the Avs to the playoffs as well, with McKinnon and O'Reilly and Stastny. But yeah, I mean, it's really nice to see the Avs having that core defense, or not core defense, the core like goaltending duo who could kind of steal a game if they need to. But now, since we kind of hit the playoffs, that kind of doesn't help much. A little bit, it kind of worries me in the fact that Varlamov is out for the season too. But who knows? Maybe Bernier could just do exactly what he did when the Avs went on that 10-game winning streak earlier. But I mean, it'll be interesting to see how they do with just Bernier, and I'm not sure who's the backup. I think it's Martin. or maybe Hammond. We'll see. I don't remember.
Going back to a little bit on Nathan MacKinnon, is he the surefire? I mean, he's got to be, right? He's got to be the surefire pick for the Hart Trophy.
In my eyes, he definitely is. I mean, last in the entire league to a playoff spot is just incredible, and he's obviously played a main role in that. But I can also definitely see it being a close competition between him and Taylor Hall with the New Jersey Devils, because the Devils were last in the East as well, and they kind of had that same rise. But I don't see it because the Avs were so bad last season, and now they're at that stage where they are now, and I see MacKinnon walking away with it personally.
And even then, you look at with MacKinnon, and I think it even speaks a little bit to his maturation of a player, because it goes back to him just having the ability to really just take a stranglehold, and just show his talent. I mean, he is an absolutely – I don't think I've ever seen – Sidney Crosby, when he came into the league, and Alexander Ovechkin, when they came into the league, they took the league by storm because of how strong they were, at least Ovechkin, just how strong they were, how athletic they were on the ice, and just how fleet of foot they are. Nathan MacKinnon is kind of that way, but there's just something different about him. And maybe it's just because I'm a Colorado Avalanche fan, but there feels like something different about him versus all the others that could potentially separate him. And I think that it's just, for me, I think it's just mainly how quick he is at the point of attack on the ice.
Yeah, I mean, with MacKinnon, at the start of his career, is mostly just his speed, and obviously something that the NHL really didn't experience before. And now he's been able to kind of mix his game a little bit, because I remember in his first season, it was all about his speed, but he lacked strength. And then during the offseason, he did a bunch of stuff to make him stronger. And so that kind of was the start of that combination between his strength and his speed. And now that's basically risen up to what he is now, which is just a complete maniac who just, it's extremely difficult to knock off the puck. And I think his mature level has definitely kind of had a huge huge effect in that as well, just because the I don't know. I mean, coming into the NHL as a rookie obviously isn't easy, but coming in as a guy who's like, okay, I have to lead this team almost to that point, but now he's kind of like, okay, this is not just about me. This is about the Avs getting back in general, which isn't anything I've really heard from, say, like Duchesne in the years. It was like, I don't know. He's very team first, and I think that's what I really like about him. He's just very mature for being as young as he is.
Is he the heart of the team? I mean, that's kind of a hard question to ask, because, I mean, the Denver Nuggets, it's kind of the question that's been going around with the Denver Nuggets as far as, like, who is the heart of the team? Is it Nikola Jokic? Is it Gary Harris? Is it Jamal Murray? Who's the heart of the Avalanche? I mean, is it Gabriel Landeskog? Is it Mikko Rantanen?
I kind of think it's a mix. It's really weird, especially when you're in the locker room. You can't really pinpoint one guy who's like the heart. It's I think it's just that core that they have of kind of what you're saying with MacKinnon, Rantanen, and Varley, all those main guys. It's a very even effort of a team, and all of them are kind of play the heart of a team role, which is, it's interesting because you don't really see that. Like with the Penguins, for example, you can see Crosby's mainly that guy, but I don't know, with the Avs, I would say it's mostly just core, kind of what you're saying.
Yeah, and in some ways, and it's kind of an interesting comparison because of where the Chicago Blackhawks were. I mean, it's kind of the interesting parallel. Sorry, Sean, but it's that interesting parallel, of basically where you go from the Blackhawks being such a dominant hockey team, for so long, and then now they are back to where the Colorado Avalanche are, at least where they were last year, and it's kind of that interesting dichotomy, I guess, with where the team was with the Avalanche, and then now with the Blackhawks. And I think my whole point is that how deep the Blackhawks were, that it really wasn't just one guy.
Yeah, and I mean it's interesting because the main two comparisons I keep hearing when it comes to championship teams is championship teams drafting well, which is, I mean, obviously Chicago gained Taves and then Kane and then all those other guys, Duncan Keith and Seabrook. And that kind of transformed that team into what they were, winning, I think, 3 championships, 4. Yeah. And then you have the Penguins, who before Crosby were not a good team. And then they got Crosby, and then they got Malkin, and then they kind of just obviously kind of snowstormed to where they at today, to 2-time Stanley Cup champions. It's all about drafting right now, and I think Sakic is kind of trying to realize that a little bit, which, I mean, kind of brings us back to like Duchesne a little bit, because he picked up all of those draft picks, and now the Avs have a chance to get a pretty good first rounder, depending on where Ottawa kind of gets in the entry draft. So it's really entertaining to watch right now.
Is it sustainable? I mean, that's kind of a hard question, but I mean, is it sustainable?
As right now?
Yeah.
As the team is right now, or?
Yeah, as the team is right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think when it comes to the offensive talent that the team has, I mean, all of them are so young. I think the average age of the Avs is like 24 years old. But I think it is sustainable if Sakic and Sakic kind of is smart with it and doesn't make a huge risk, which isn't something that the Penguins in Chicago did on their rise. But yeah, I would say it's sustainable.
You know, one of the questions, and I mean, I'm not all that, knowledgeable per se on the hockey, I guess, money side of things, team side of things, whatnot, as far as free agents or keeping it the contracts, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
Is it easy? Because, I mean, it seems like a lot of times they'll sign a player to an 8-year contract or a 6-year contract or a 7-year contract. And it kind of goes to that whole sustainability point. But, I mean, it's also at that point where they sign those guys to those contracts, but there's kind of that leeway to the point where they'll also be let go. I mean, because I remember when they signed Duchesne to that lengthy contract, and they signed, was it O'Reilly? No, they signed someone else, I thought, to a contract extension, but then they kind of got rid of him. But I had to explain that a little bit. I mean, with the contract situation as far as hockey is concerned, because it feels like it's a little bit different, right? With some sports?
Yeah, I mean, with some sports, with hockey, I think it's more of, it really depends on the person's performance after that 3-year entry deal that they get. Because I know with Crosby, when he first came into obviously with Crosby and Ovechkin, they're top-end talents who change the organization in general. But I think with players like them, the GM kind of puts into account, okay, these guys are going to be here for a long time, and so they put in a big contract. But I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think it's definitely interesting to pay attention to, but one, I'm bad with math, so I don't really pay attention to the salary stuff. But yeah, I mean, I think it really just depends on like how they kind of perform in the first few seasons when they're here, and they kind of go year in and year out, because yeah, I don't know. It's complicated. The salary area is very complicated for me.
I'll say this: the salary area is complicated any way you look at it in any sport. I mean, NFL, there's parts of the NFL cap that I don't understand. Baseball, I don't understand. I mean, basketball, I don't understand why there's, so many hefty contracts being thrown out to free agents and guys that really don't deserve a contract. And so I'm horrible with math. And, then again, I only took one math class at Metro, at least one that I was supposed to. So I guess that's what you get when you're a journalism student. You're focused on writing.
Yeah. And speaking of hockey, the Penguins are up 7-0 on Philly in Game 1.
That's a close game. That's a close game, right?
Yeah, and Crosby just got a hattie, so that's fun. That's a lot.
No big deal. A hat trick in Game 1 of the postseason. That's no biggie.
Yeah, I was kind of hoping they would both lose, but what can you do? You can't do much.
Yeah, when they're up by a touchdown.
Yep.
So let's get into it a little bit. Let's talk about that postseason against the Nashville Predators. We talk about comparisons a little bit with the Avalanche because there's, in some ways, it's I guess that's why it's incredible. We were talking about the Denver Nuggets and Colorado Avalanche. It's why I think that they truly are similar in a lot of ways because you can compare them to multiple teams. So like the Colorado Avalanche, we were comparing to like the Chicago Blackhawks, or you were mentioning the Pittsburgh Penguins also. The Nashville Predators, in some ways, as far as last year and going into this playoffs, are kind of reversed now to the point with the Colorado Avalanche because Nashville is really kind of assumed that number 1 seed, and then the Avalanche, they're that 8th seed, and Nashville won the Stanley Cup when they were the 8th seed. So it's kind of it's really that interesting scenario, so to speak, not maybe to compare and contrast, but just it's that case of that I think the Avs actually have a good deal of confidence on their shoulders, knowing the fact of how successful Nashville was.
I mean, Nashville didn't win the cup when they were 8th seed. They made it to the cup final. My bad. But,
my bad.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting with them because they were, depth-wise last year, they were pretty good too. But now they've added some key pieces to kind of increase that depth, which is absolutely terrifying because their defensive depth is just insane. But I mean, when you look at the numbers for like the brackets and stuff, when you're like picking which teams, the numbers really are not that different in comparison with Avs, it's interesting. But then when you listen to everyone else, they're saying that Predators will win 5 or they'll just complete the full sweep. Sweep. And I don't know. I mean, I'm looking forward to the series, obviously, because I'm a hockey fan and it's the Avs, and it just, I don't know. It's you once with the Avs having McKinnon and just kind of getting everything going how they want to. If they can do that in Nashville, which will be really difficult, I personally see the Avs and Preds going about 6 or 7 games maybe, but it's interesting.
Yeah, and I think that's the beauty of the NHL playoffs in general, because you have, and I mean, baseball to some degree, you have that, and I think that, and that's why I think as far as playoffs is concerned, series playoffs is concerned, baseball and hockey take the cake in that regard, because basketball, it's you kind of know what you're going to get, basically, as far as who's going to win a series, who's going to not win a series. And then for baseball, it could be the wild card team that goes to the World Series, or it could be a 7th, 8th seed, 6th seed, whatever, to go to the Stanley Cup or go to the World Series or whatnot. And I think that for hockey, it's just it opens up those possibilities. And so I think if you're the Avalanche, and I mean it kind of goes back to the whole mantra of playoffs anyway. But if you can steal a game, either the first game, second game in Nashville, it would be incredible if Colorado stole it in the first game, and the amount of confidence that it would do. But that would be incredible if the Avs came in Nashville and stole game 1.
Yeah, I mean, no one is predicting them to steal any game, or maybe they can steal one game in Nashville. But I mean, kind of what I was saying before, the Avs are kind of taking that underdog title as like a thing of pride almost. Like they know that that no one's expecting them to really win anything or kind of make it far. But in the recent years, you look at teams like obviously the Predators last year, but then also you look at the Kings when they won one of their cups in, I think it was 2011 or 2012. I'm spacing a little bit on the years. Too many. That's too far. It's one of those ones. I can't remember which one. I mean, it just seems for years now it's been that underdog team who's really been able to kind of make an impact, and that's what the Avs are looking to do. And so far, what we've seen is if they have a mindset that they've had all season long, then they can be a dangerous team. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting just with such a young team and how much of a mindset and a player who can get hot can change the entire playoff thing. Like, look at this Pittsburgh series right now. Crosby might get hot, and that could maybe go 5 games or possibly sweep Philly. And that's just how the playoffs in the NHL work. That's one reason why I love it so much.
What does that do for? I was going to say, what does that do for a team's confidence? I mean, especially it's one of the reasons. I mean, the Rockies aren't off to a great start this season, but they had the brawl earlier today, huge brawl. But that could do a lot to jumpstart it. But what does it do for a team's confidence when you're such a young team and you go to the postseason? You know, I would imagine, and it's easy to say it, but I would imagine that it does a lot for their confidence as far as a team and where they could potentially go.
Yeah, I mean, we've been kind of seeing all season long where just the Avs feel like they need to prove something, and they've had that as their motivator. And now they're in the playoffs for the first time with that mantra, and they're not – I don't think they're going to give it up, especially now considering the fact that all of the analysts, all of the fan base – YouTube channels and all these other things, like Steve Dangle, who's a big guy for Sportsnet who talks about the Leafs, predicted the Preds to win as well, and that's what everyone's picking. But the mentality right now for the Avs is that they can beat everyone, and for a young team that's a dangerous thing, especially with McKinnon, who in that last game got a scoring. He got some points. He got his goal in the last 8 games, and that top line started rolling. And for the Avs, the main thing that they have is if that top line gets rolling, then things will get really interesting.
You know, and it really will. And I think that for McKinnon's sake and with, team in general, I think especially with how, as we're talking about the playoffs, I think it does wonders knowing how the first line struggled to end the season, but then when it mattered in the game of games, that they came up big when it mattered. I think it could be enough to kind of supplant them, or not supplant them, to help motivate them to continue the way that they've done all season long.
Yeah, I mean, especially in that last game, they just right from the beginning, they said that we want to be on the playoffs, and they had that mantra and that philosophy and just that mentality. And it came down to the last game, but they still just believed in themselves and just destroyed St. Louis in the process. And just the forward corp that they have is really interesting. If they can get on a roll, really anyone on that team can score if they really want to. And yeah, I mean, McKinnon and Rance and Landy will lead the way, but you also have to watch out for the younger guys on that line or not on the line, but like Kerfoot and Jost as well, but Como, Soderberg, and Nieto as that third line as well. And I mean, it kind of surprises me that people don't think that the Avs have depth because for their forwards they have depth. It just defensive wise they're not the strongest team. But even defensive wise they have Sam Girard and Tyson Barrie and Zadorov who can score as well. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm with you though, because I can understand it from the point of view that they're young and there's just maybe quote unquote not there yet.
Mm-hmm.
But I can understand it from the standpoint that they're just a young team. But I mean, it goes really both ways in a lot of sports. I mean, look at the Houston Astros. I mean, look at the LA Kings. You mentioned the LA Kings. I mean, there comes a point where you embrace it. And this is that opportunity to where guys like Girard and Kerfoot, and Jost, guys like that can really embrace that, and it can kind of help, push them forward in their development, I should say.
Yeah, I mean, you also kind of have to remember that the Avs do have playoff experience in their own right because Landy made one in his rookie season, which was cool because it was obviously Duchesne making it as well and all of them. But there's Landy who has experience, Mac who has experience, Varley who has experience, EJ, which kind of sucks with EJ being out for the season. That really hurts Avs, but yeah. You have Coma who I keep saying who's won a cup, but he hasn't. He came close. He has experience with the Penguins, though. There's a few other guys who are on the tip of my tongue, but I can't remember right now. But I mean, the Avs do have experience on their side. Oh, and Bernier, of course, too. It's interesting because they have that mix of playoff experience, but also being really young at the same time. Which I think will play kind of part in it in the series because it's not like it's not their first rodeo. Well, I mean, with a lot of the guys it is, but not with the main guys, the main core. It's not.
Yeah. So, I mean, do you see the Avs winning it? I mean, ultimately, or is it just kind of a David versus Goliath matchup?
I think in many ways it's more of a David versus Goliath one because with the Preds making it to finals last season and just kind of what I was saying before, making all those changes and now winning the President's Trophy, they're really the team to beat. And but there's this thing called the President's Trophy curse, which we've constantly seen the Washington Capitals fall under, with them losing the second round and the first round for the last 5 years or so. And I mean, in the NHL, just nothing new when it comes to upsets happening. And I mean, there could be an upset happening. Right now, the NHL is kind of really hard to predict, which makes it really, really fun. But that's just my opinion.
Well, it's definitely an exciting time though, because again, the Colorado Avalanche are they're just entering that point where they've never been there before. At least it feels. Well, I guess I should take that back. It's surprising because they haven't been there they haven't been in the playoffs in what 5-6 years. So
yeah, not since 5.
Yeah, so it feels like it's been forever.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean,
right? I mean, it feels like it's been.
They can't make it. I mean, it's definitely does feel like it's been forever, but I think that will change as soon as they can find their identity, which it seems like they have been able to find after this season. So I'm kind of hoping this will be that one season where it's like they make it this season and then they have consecutive appearances, which is what it was supposed to be back in 2013. But then they traded O'Reilly and Stastny and got rid of their top-end talent and got older guys. So they flipped the switch and they kind of messed the team up. But, I mean, I hope this is the start of some consecutive playoff appearances because that'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt. I mean, and the one way that they can truly get there is by their player development, and it in some ways goes to that Duchesne trade. But the Colorado Eagles are an affiliate of them,
Mm-hmm.
and they finished the regular season winning the Memphis division with that record of 48-18 for 102 points. I mean, just an incredible season.
Yeah, I mean, the Eagles have always been that really good team with for years now. Even when they were back in the CHL, they were an extremely good team. But I think this season's just more special considering the fact that one, it's their last season, and two, or last season in the ECHL, and two, they're just I mean they won the Kelly Cup last season, so it's kind of that chance for them to make that repeat before getting not the boot, which is not the boot, but they're getting promotion. And I mean the Eagles and the Avs playoffs will be really fun to watch, and I think it's just really good for Colorado professional hockey as well.
And they will maintain their Avs affiliate, correct, when they move up to the AHL?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
and I think that
basically what it will do is since the Eagles are moving up to ECHL the Eagles are moving up to the AHL, it will make it easier for development as well, because right now the Avs are affiliated with San Antonio as their AHL team, and it's weird because you see these guys who are going from San Antonio to Eagles constantly. So like every week, one like top guy will go from like one team to other. And it's just it's the journey. It's a way of life for them, but I can't even imagine having it happen because that'll be exhausting to go from one team to another in like a week time.
I hear you, because it's like a Rockies or just the minor league teams. You know, I mean, you keep jumping from rookie ball to high A to double A to triple A to the majors. I mean, it's like, you know, you're moving on up, it feels, which is a great feeling. But it's also, sports is also that beautiful thing about creating relationships along the way. And so it can be kind of hard, I guess, to create those relationships when, well, I guess you're that good, but when you're also moving up the ladder.
Yeah, something that's kind of off topic, but I was kind of thinking about going to a Sky Sox game with some my friends up in the Springs. Why did the Rockies change their affiliate from the Sky Sox to the Isotopes?
You know, I think it's more along the lines of, well, the altitude thing maybe, but also going away from, you know, their actual home ballpark, so to speak, and going to a different location. And but I mean, even then, Albuquerque has altitude.
Yeah.
So I mean, but I just think it was just more going a little bit away from it, and just kind of seeing exactly what kind of experimenting in a way, I guess.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. You know, and so going back to the Eagles, one of the keys for the Eagles was defense, and they actually had a defenseman win the ECLH Defenseman of the Year for the second straight season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Matt Register has been just that one guy who, I mean, he's I think he's the assistant captain of the team, and he's kind of what we were saying about the heart and fire of the team. He's one of them, because there's a lot of them on that Eagles team. But he's definitely one of them, and just every single night he just puts in all of his effort, and he makes all the players around him better. And it'll be interesting to see what happens with him when the merger happens next season. I'm really curious how that team will look in the AHL next season.
No doubt. The Avalanche signed Travis Barron a few months ago to an entry-level contract. But then the Eagles ended up signing him just ahead of the playoffs. How is he doing so far?
Yeah, I mean,
Well,
it's interesting because I think it's more of a act of kind of like giving Barron that ice time that he needs before possibly maybe making the jump to the NHL next season. But I I see him more kind of spending more time with Eagles next season more in comparison with making that jump up. Just kind of taking a look at the Avs roster now and kind of getting an idea of what's to come. But I don't know. I guess we'll see. I mean, Barron has been really good with Ottawa 67s, racking up plenty of points for them. And with the Eagles looking to repeat as Kelly Cup champions, I think he's going to be a really good addition. Another one that I kind of forgot to mention earlier was that he's another Avs signing, but Nicholas Miloch is a defenseman who is a really good stud defenseman who has been basically playing with San Antonio for a little while, and he just got re-signed to the Eagles as well, so he'll be with the team for the playoffs. And I mean, I just see it as the AHL guys getting some valuable playoff experience and seeing and probably just going all in for that repeat of the Kelly Cup before making that move up to the AHL.
yeah. So going into next year, who are some players that are on the Colorado Eagles right now, or just really good young players? I mean, young and by hockey standards, young players that could take the leap.
I see Joey Rattel being one of them, just because I don't know, he's not a weird little guy. That wouldn't be nice. He's a weird combination just because he is the perfect embodiment of the Eagles because one, he loves fighting, he's very hard hitting, and he loves to score. And earlier in the season, you saw a lot of his hard hits and his fights, but now you're seeing a lot of his scoring touch as well. And I think he's going to definitely be one of the guys to help out. But obviously with Barron as well, and now with me watching the Rockies game, I'm spacing on a lot of the other name, or not Nuggets game, not the Rockies game.
Yeah,
I'm spacing on a lot of the names.
It's okay. I mean, it's kind of turned a little bit into a good game with the Denver Nuggets. It's a very fascinating time with the Colorado Avalanche and just with the whole city of Denver because of just how the Broncos went backwards, but the teams that really needed to step up really have with the Nuggets and the Rockies and the Avalanche. I mean, they've really stepped up, and it's been incredibly gratifying to see just the city in Denver in some ways really rally around all three of those teams.
Yeah, I mean, I know Colorado is basically Broncos country, but you also have to remember that the Avs were the first team to bring a championship to the city. And I do think that they are a very key part of kind of the not the history. Well, I mean the history of Denver, but as well as kind of like the sports atmosphere, I guess is what it would probably be a good saying for it, just because they have a rich history too. And I don't know, I mean, Denver's interesting with how many professional sports we have here, and we have a very wide range of people who love supporting specific teams, and then we have people who support all the teams, and I don't know, it's interesting. But once a team makes it far, then they shift their focus and they're all in, and it's kind of cool to see.
Yeah, I had the opportunity to have a sit-down interview with one of the Rockies front office people. At least he was a community organizer. I think it was Kellogg or something like that. But he provided a really interesting point that kind of, in some ways, furthers your point. What he said was when the Rockies went to the World Series, the top selling merchandise of the season automatically was the Colorado Rockies and the Boston Red Sox in 2007.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it kind of embodies exactly kind of what you're talking about. Because when a town sees the next hot thing succeed, they're going to rally around it once it's actually at that point, especially playoffs, whatever. I mean, Nuggets, maybe in the sake that this is game 82, but they're going to rally around them, and that's great to see.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's cool too, considering the fact that we have the Nuggets doing well, we have the Avs doing well, and then you and the Rockies, and then you kind of look at the I won't say minor league because I don't see them as minor league, but you have the Mammoth who are constantly doing well, and then you have the Outlaws who have won 2 championships, and then you have college hockey as well. And I think it just goes back to the conversation that we were having last podcast was
that was phenomenal, by the way.
Just how special the Denver is with their teams. It's crazy.
Yeah. You guys can go back and listen to that podcast, by the way, on Spreaker and iTunes and iHeartRadio. It really is interesting, though, because, and I tagged you in the tweet that I saw, one of the followers that asked me that question, but I really do feel that as far as the most underappreciated sport in Colorado, it really is, the hockey, the lacrosse. I mean, just the whole landscape with it being the Denver Outlaws, the Colorado Mammoth, the Denver Pioneers, the Denver Pioneers hockey team, the Denver Pioneers lacrosse team. I mean, there is a lot of continuity. And then, even you and I were talking about the Colorado School of Mines,
Mm-hmm.
hockey team in the past too. So just there's a lot of continuity and fluidity in sports that frankly just aren't getting the notoriety or recognition that they deserve.
Yeah, I mean, then you also have people consider them niche sports, but like lacrosse, you have John Grant Jr. as a head coach for high school teams, and then you have other lacrosse guys as high school coaches as well. It speaks a lot to the community and community of lacrosse and as well as hockey, because you have George Gwozdecki coaching Valor Christian, who's a ex-DU coach who brought all these national championships to Pioneers franchise in the first place. And I don't know. I mean, I think Denver just has a very special atmosphere and community when it comes to sports.
Yeah, and then a unique one that when you get to free agency, the only team that seems to attract free agency is the Denver Broncos.
Yeah.
Everybody else just seems to, kind of throw a little bit by the way. So that's kind of a different discussion in and of itself. And why it's just such an odd thing for Denver sports, because it's really good sports town. It's just then you get to, after the Denver Broncos, it's like, well, what kind of free agents are going to come to the Colorado Rockies? What kind of free agent are going to come to the Colorado Avalanche? But it'll be interesting. And maybe kind of back to the Avalanche a little bit. If the Avalanche, with what the Avalanche have done success-wise, is it possible that something like this, and I mean, the Nuggets are maybe going to get a little bit of that, at least a little bit of it right now. But is it possible that something like this, the success that the Avalanche could lead to free agents, maybe some big-time NHL free agents that come here?
I would say so, yeah, just because, I mean, you look at the 2013 season, I mean, when he came over, he was a little bit older, and he was kind of past his prime. But seeing Iginla come in over from a free agency to the Avs was, I thought, huge, because I grew up watching him. And just, it was kind of cool seeing him in a Avalanche jersey.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, I see, especially with the team being so young, it kind of brings that perspective of this team's young. They have so much potential to be good for years to come and not for like 1 year. And I think just with the Avs being this young right now and doing already what they're doing, they have so much potential to just be better and kind of get that word out there, being like, Colorado's on the rise. So just if you want to come out here and be a part of it, then come on over.
Yeah. And it just would be such a great feeling to just have the city of Raleigh, just continue it. I mean, it's a great feeling. Nuggets are only down 3, by the way, nearing the end of the fourth quarter. JJ, man, it was really good to bring you on, and obviously enjoy the new, format, I should say, of the show, and doing it, just kind of doing it to where the sound quality is a little bit better, man. They actually get to hear good quality radio for a change.
Yeah, I mean, just the format with Google Hangout is a lot better than the public dialing in and being like, oh hey, public phone, or not public phone. That makes no sense. Speaker. Yeah, just a lot easier, I think, just because I'm just on my phone, which helps me a lot. But it's a lot easier, I think.
Yeah, and it was kind of a tongue twister too, saying that you're on speaker or on Spreaker. I mean, it was kind of a tongue twister in and of itself.
Speaker. Yeah, I think they purposely did that. They're like, what sounds like speaker? Spreaker. Okay.
Right.
Whatever you say.
Right. JJ, they can follow you on Twitter, man. Where can they follow you at?
They can follow me at Seaward JJ 5, and I post a lot of hockey and pictures of hockey and pictures I take for the Outlaws this season and hockey.
Well, they are worthy pictures. I've seen the Snapchats. I've seen the pictures. They are worthy photos. You and I were kind of go back and forth a day ago. Not comparing headlines, but I sent you the headline of the mock draft that I was doing. You sent me the photo of something that you took. Yeah, that was kind of funny. He's JJ. I'm Cameron, and I want to thank you guys very much for tuning in to the Cameron Parker Show. You guys can subscribe to the Cameron Parker Show podcast on iTunes. Yes, this famous podcast, if you will, is on iTunes. You guys can subscribe to it, listen to it on iHeartRadio. If you guys have Amazon Echo and you guys feel like you guys just want to talk to Alexa or Linda or whatever it is you guys name that Amazon Echo, and you guys want to say that you want to listen to the Cameron Parker, let's listen to the Cameron Parker Show, and she'll talk back to you and give you a certain episode or whatever. This has been the Cameron Parker Show. Yeah, go ahead.
And if it's all right, could I do a little plug for the podcast I run?
Yo, you're part of the hockey podcast as well with Sean Tafley, who was going to be on, but he had he had something to get to. But where can they also get you guys on that hockey podcast?
You can get it on iTunes, Google Play, SoundCloud as well. Just Hockey Mountain Podcast. It's a goofy name, but we like it. But we basically we'll have to be recording our new episode tomorrow. We kind of fell out with everyone getting so busy, but we talk everything in the NHL with Sean being a Chicago Blackhawk fan and kind of an Avs fan as well. We really talk anything hockey in Colorado. So if you're a big hockey fan, just come on over, give us a listen, and if you like it enough, just give us a follow.
He's JJ. I'm Cameron, and this has been another edition of the Cameron Parker Show.
Worked all week, cleaned up, clean cut, and clean shaved. I got to cover off the 68. I fired it up and let them horses sing a little pretty thing, a little tan leg Georgia dream. But she's rocking them holy jeans. Baby, what you got going on Saturday? You know, word's got it, there's gonna be a party out of town about half a mile. 4-wheel drives and big mud tires, musket diamond wine. just do your thing. Give up your keys. Hell, why drive when you can stay with me? And then after a while, we sneak away from the bonfire. Walk by the moonlight and down to the riverside. Got you sipping on some moonshine. Well, baby, if you're in the mood and you can settle for one night of rodeo, you could be my tan-leg Juliet. I'll be your redneck Romeo. Oh, baby, you can find me in the back of a jacked up tailgate, sitting around watching all these pretty things. I get down in that Georgia clay and I'll find peace at the bottom of a real tall cold drink. I'm chilling with some Skinner and some old Hank. Let's get this thing started, it's my kind of party. Tailgate, sitting around watching all these pretty things. I get down in that Georgia clay and I'll find peace at the bottom of a real tall cold drink. I'm chilling with some Skinner and some old Hank. Let's get this thing started, it's my kind of party. Ready for this?